Me and my friends, when I was probably like the age of 7, we used to go around speaking in that accent, and people used to ask my older brothers and sisters, like, "Is he from America? What's going on? Why is he talking like that?" I did always see it as this, this just kind of dream place, and now I get to represent that dream place, and it's literally made dreams come true for me in my life and my career.
It's Rog, and you know this. The list of the greatest Scouse Americans of all time is long and distinguished. I actually come 10,273rd. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold's number 2, but my guest, undoubtedly top of the pile, the single greatest Liverpudlian ever to don a United States jersey. At 25 years old, he's a man who's had the tenacity to overcome setbacks, challenges, disappointments, to survive and thrive, defining himself as that classic triple threat. That would be footballer, Calvin Klein model, and amateur magician. He is the Magic Johnson to Tim Ream's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he's done it all at roughly half of Tim Ream's age. I'm thrilled to be joined by the greatest Robinson since Sugar Ray, the greatest Jedi since Obi-Wan, a bloke whose heart beats red, white and blue ahead of the second game of the window against mighty Oman. It's Fulham and US men's national team left back, the one and only Antonee Robinson.
Hi Rog, that's some intro, mate. Thanks for having me.
Well, you are some incredible human being, Antonee, and I want to go right back to the source of the River Jedi. You were raised in Liverpool, and I know football was your everything from your early days. Your dad, Marlon, was your first coach back in the old Allerton, Paris Saint-Germain under sevens, playing in Camp Hill, Walton. It's where I used to play 80 years before you. And your dad, not a bad player himself, 4 years at Duke before an ankle injury took him out of the game. What did he teach you at that young age when you were starting to play the game that stuck with you?
Mainly one thing he really imparted on me was freedom. Like, really, every kid who played, he really wanted to see them express themselves and not be boring. He didn't want to coach a bunch of robots, basically. He wanted us all to, be free on the ball, enjoy ourselves, test ourselves. We all, played different positions. I was one of the smallest kids growing up in the team, but I was still, playing centre back, right back, left back, striker. Like, I played everywhere. But overall, I think his main message to me was, to just have a really good winning mentality and determination and work rate. So one big thing in his coaching was fitness. He used to run us up and down. Obviously, you said Camp Hill yourself, that steep hill. We were doing sprints up that every single session. It's probably where my pace comes from nowadays. But other than that, just running till you drop, giving everything. And even when I went to Everton, and through the academy days when I wasn't, always one of the main players and I wasn't starting, it was his main thing he used to say to me was, if you only play 1 minute, play that 1 minute like it's the most important game of your life.
God, I love that. That is an approach not just to football, but to life itself. And the freedom that your dad talked about, he kind of gave to his kids by calling them, famously, the Galacticos of Liverpool. And your dad gave everyone a nickname that stuck. Messi, Puyol, Zico, just little scousers dreaming big dreams. And I believe he wanted to call you Thierry Henry, but you resisted, sticking with your self-given nickname, Jedi, which has followed you all the way from Pee Wee soccer to the Premier League. And nicknames, they're a bold choice. They can make or break a career. You opted for that galaxy far away. Tell us in your own words what being a Jedi, essentially a guardian of peace and justice for the old Republic, what does that mean to you?
I think obviously at the time I didn't think much into it. I would have just been into the outfits and the games. So to grow up and still be called it, it's kind of strange, really. Obviously, people make little different puns and jokes about it nowadays, but I don't even really. I just associate it as my name now. Like, my fiance calls me it. Everyone who I meet, I introduce myself as Jedi. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's just who I am now. Like, being called Antonee is a little bit strange to me as well.
God, just cool outfits, and it becomes life-changing. There's something else that was life-changing for you, because your mum has a story about you from around this time that you're obsessed with American television, Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Hannah Montana, all the modern classics, really, that you started for a time just speaking in an American accent. And when I heard that, I related to it because growing up in Liverpool, that port city with America across the ocean, there is an incredible gravitational pull of the United States. And you're an American citizen through your dad, Marlon. He spent much of his childhood in White Plains. What did America represent to you already at that young age, watching all that Disney fare?
I mean, obviously, like you said, I don't know how you knew that, by the way. That's some good digging from you. But yeah, me and my friends, when I was probably like the age of 7, we used to go around speaking in that accent. And people used to ask my older brothers and sisters, like, is he from America? What's going on? Why is he talking about? So that's a funny story to it now. But in terms of, growing up, what America meant to me, it just kind of seemed like this dreamland. Obviously, like, you kind of idolize it, just coming from, Hunts Cross in Liverpool to, this grand old place when, I remember going on vacation there when I was young as well, and the dream was to, move there, and that didn't happen because Everton became quite important, so we ended up sticking around, which kind of paved, my life, how it's gone, so I'm grateful for that, but I did always see it as this, this just kind of dream place, and now I get to represent that dream place, and it's literally made dreams come true for me in my life and my career.
Anthony, that is beautiful. I do need to pull it back though. Hunts Cross, is that where you grew up?
Grew up in Hunts Cross, yeah.
Hunts Cross Supper Bar, one of the 3 greatest chip shops probably in the world.
Yeah, we used to get ours from Sangs though.
Oh, mate, I went to school with Sang's kid. I've got a lot to talk about with you. Benny Sang, big shout out to you. But you're a man after my own heart because you did begin your life, as you say, as a toffee, joining the Everton Academy when you were 11, coming up in the ranks with the greats, and by the greats, I mean our mate Tom Davis. Who were your heroes back then, though, at Everton and otherwise? Who were you looking to emulate?
I mean, when I was young, the main couple of people, I mean, not really position specific, but I remember when I first signed, I used to look at, there's a wall in the changing room that shows players' ages when they made their debuts. So I used to look at, like Rooney, Rodwell, people like that who made the debuts at like 16, and I was like,
16.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna be the youngest player to ever play for Everton. Didn't even end up making my debut for Everton, to be honest, in a competitive game. So it didn't pan out. I mean, it was a big part of my journey, and I definitely dreamt big when I signed. But in terms of actually when I got there, Leighton Baines was one of the best left backs in the Premier League, so I was always aspiring to be him when I sort of transitioned. But from a younger age, I think like Pienaar was also a special player as well.
Stephen Pienaar, God, the 2 of them on the left.
Yeah.
What a pair. I'm still going to be on that wall. Roger Bennett, age 73, making his debut for Everton Football Club. But you've talked about, ultimately, being a late developer. You weren't the top prospect in your age group at Everton. You weren't being called into the England youth camps. And that's often a hard thing to experience as a kid. See your peers passing you by, get their chances. Where did you summon the tenacity to keep striving, to keep pushing in the face of that? Where does that come from?
It goes back to what we first said. I mean, I do have just this determination, to try and outwork anyone, and a winning mentality when I do get a chance to play. So when I was young, I mean, thankfully for me, I don't know if you've spoken about many people like this, but when it comes down to players in academies, and there wasn't many in my age group like this, but there's a lot of players who get hyped up really early. Parents are looking at them as the star boy, they're getting their ear, and they're bigging them up to, be like the next big thing. And for me, growing up, I was just trying to get a game for the youth team. I wasn't thinking, like, I got knocked back very quickly from thinking I'm going to be Everton's youngest player to I just want to start a game. I just want to come on for 20 minutes. So it was that sort of mentality. It kept me grounded, definitely, and it made me all the more appreciative when I did start playing games. And I've kind of just got this thing now, like, no matter what sort of injuries or niggles I'm going through, illness, I don't want to miss a game. If I can physically put myself on the pitch, I'm not going to not play, because you never know how long you're going to be able to stay in the team for. It could just go away like that. So
Your first and only youth national team call-up finally came when you were 17, December 2014, and it wasn't for England, but for the United States. Week and a half in Marbella, Spain, with the US under-18s, first national team experience with the likes of Eric Williamson and Brooks Lennon. First of all, quickly, how did it happen? Did they find you, or did you reach out to US Soccer?
They found me. So I know obviously when we first started our scholarship at Everton, when you fill in your kind of like player profile, you have to put what countries you're eligible to play for internationally. So I've put England, USA, and Jamaica. Didn't think nothing of it because people had already been called up at that age, like under 14s, 15s, England, and I wasn't even playing. So I just kind of knew that I wasn't going to be involved in that. And then got in the team for the youth team, but then missed an FA Youth Cup game with an injury. So the next one came around, and I just remember the manager not putting me in the squad, and I was like, that's a bit weird. But he came up to me and said, look, the US have reached out, they want to call you up to an under-18 camp. It was in, they were just like, do you want to go? And I was like, 100% I want to go. So it was obviously during season, it wasn't like an international break or anything, but they let me go. And it was just a great experience. One, just to see the international stage in general, even though it was a young age. I remember we played 2 games against Germany. I'm pretty sure I ended up playing left centre back at some point in that game as well, which is a bit weird. But I think they won the first game, we lost the second game, and just really enjoyable. The standard of training was really high. I do remember everyone being like technically very good, which it was kind of hard to keep up with. But then in terms of like aggression and stuff, it was kind of soft. I remember flying into tackles. Like Brooks Lennon, who was there, I remember like hitting him with a good tackle, and he started moaning at me. And I was like, this is just a normal like tackle from an English. Like no one would moan at that at Everton, so it was a bit weird. And they could see that I was a pretty aggressive defender. But so I went away thinking like, even though that was tough, like I still hung in there, and I've got a taste of this stage. And just that opportunity gave me a lot of confidence going forward as well.
What was it like for you? I'm trying to picture it surrounded. I imagine for like the first time on a football field by American teenagers, American soccer culture. For a Liverpool lad, were you looking around like, wow, this is different? What does it mean when they shout, you don't know where I'm from, dog? Were you like, what am I doing here? Or were you just like, God, I love this. I want this. More.
In terms of like the American like culture of it, it wasn't too. I mean, there was some phrases that were getting used, like instead of bibs, they were saying pinnies or pennies or something, which I'd never heard that before, and just little like phrases that I'd never heard, which I've gotten used to now. But other than that, everyone was really welcoming. The boys were all getting me to make them cups of tea in the hotel, stuff like that. But I really, as young kids, I really got on with everyone, and in terms of like, it seemed like a really talented group. I know there was a couple of guys who my age who weren't there, who I'd meet later on in that pool, sort of like Cameron Carter, because he was, a little meathead, so he was with the first team at that age as well at some point. So I just thoroughly enjoyed it, and I did want more. And it was weird. The next call up I got was for the first team, so.
I hope that sticks, little meathead. I do love that. There's a fortune in his commercial exploitation of that nickname. But you sign your first professional contract with mighty Everton at the end of that season. Travel to Asia with the first team on pre-season tour. First real taste of the professional game. But it was cruelly cut short. I remember this like it was yesterday. It was an agony for me as a fan, and I didn't even experience it. A brutal knee injury in your debut first team appearance, a friendly against Leeds, took you out for the entire season. Sitting in that doctor's office just 1 week before your 18th birthday, being told that the extent of the injury, that it would require major surgery, a surgery from which it should be said a percentage of athletes never recover. What were the thoughts running through your head?
I mean, one, I'd literally had that kind of scenario the year before, so I had the knee injury with the youth team when I was 16. So I had that surgery a day before my 17th birthday. Didn't have a pro contract lined up. It was in my second year scholarship. Woke up from the surgery and they said, yeah, you're going to be out for 5 months. So immediately I'm thinking, I've got from January until May to prove that I deserve a contract. This is going to be tough. But I ended up getting back fit in November. I remember playing my first game against Man United and then Liverpool's under-18s. Doing quite well, feeling good. Eventually, I went on to get Player of the Year that year for the under-18s, so that was ended up being a really positive year for me. And then, like you said, the next year gets cut really short. Pre-season game with Leeds. I remember as well we had obviously Brendan Galloway, Leighton Baines, both injured at the time. Oviedo was the only other fit left back, and he played left midfield that game. So I was going into it. I was thinking I've got a decent chance to stay with the first team here, and then all of a sudden I'm injured and I'm out for 9 months. So it was brutal again. I've got no contract lined up. I'm out for a year. It was supposed to be 6 months. It didn't heal properly, so it ended up being 9. And fortunately, the 21s managers said, "Look, we'll give you another year to just kind of see if you can stay fit, play some games, see how it goes." Managed to play pretty much every under 21s game that year, and then get a 2-year deal before going out on loan. So it was really fortunate they gave me a chance, because another team, another manager could say, "Your injury history is crap. We don't want to know you. Just you're gonna have to go find somewhere else." And I could have took a whole different path.
Yeah, as you say, Everton did renew your contract. You spent one season with the under-21s before going off on loan to Bolton Wanderers. Once great faded Northern team, proper hard. You duked it out in your first relegation battle. And in that time, you had another amazing milestone. Your first call up to the US men's national team. Then, under interim Dave Sarakan, March 2018, nearly 4 years after that first youth camp, you made your international debut 2 months later against Bolivia, immediately racking up an assist to that prince, Tim Weah. What did it feel like pulling on that American jersey? You were such a young player still, Antonee. Did it feel surreal? Did it feel like just any other game? What did it mean to you in that moment?
It definitely felt surreal. I mean, I remember, obviously, I was very nervous in that camp. It was my second camp after the first one in March in North Carolina. So I remember my mum flying out for that camp. I didn't even get on the pitch, so it was a little bit unfortunate that she made the trip for that. So even though I was obviously made up to be in my first camp, it was disappointing that I didn't get to play. I was just on the bench. So to then go into the next one, I was like really nervous. I remember training, I wasn't up to I didn't feel like I was up to the standard, so I was kind of nervous. And then Sarakan pulled me aside and said, "Look, we're gonna play you against Bolivia. You've got no reason to be nervous. You're here for a reason. Just calm down and play your game and enjoy yourself." And then, like you said, ended up going on getting an assist, starting playing pretty well that game. And after that, I was like, one, relieved, but two, I was just so happy that one, had made my debut, played well, and obviously going forward from that, stuck at an international game and done pretty well. So I'd kind of set a milestone for my level, and then went on after that to then play against France in the same window, which they ended up winning the World Cup, and we drew with them, and that was an amazing experience. But I just felt really proud that all the years of sacrifice from me, my family, all the years of hard work ended up paying off into becoming an international player.
It's amazing, Anthony, because you did set a level for yourself. Your international career almost surpassed your club career at that point. You were yet to play for Everton, and the following season, heartbreak for me as a Blue, but elation for the Robinson family. You moved to Wigan Athletic, the mighty Ticks, just 10 miles away from Bolton, signing a permanent contract with them in the summer of 2019. And you were clearly doing something right, because just 6 months later, this was amazing, rumours of AC Milan interest in you started swirling, and suddenly it felt like they were real. You were told you'd be flying to Italy the next day, Wigan to AC Milan, sitting on that plane, your whole career suddenly opening up. When a transfer happens so suddenly like that, is there a surreality to it?
Yeah, I'd kind of, earlier on in the window, like mid-January, I started seeing the rumours sort of pop up and become really real, and start having them talks. And obviously, well, like the Wigan coaches were saying, "Look, we're not going to stop you going Milan. That's amazing. They've got to sort out a fee, but other than that, like, we're just going to wish you the best. Like, go and enjoy it." And then it kind of died down, and I got my head around, look, I'm not going. I remember playing in Swansea a couple of days before the window ended. And in my head, the move was off, it was done. So I just, I'd kind of put it to the back of my head. Went to a concert.
You've been practicing all your Italian, all that Italian.
I literally left it. I thought it's not happening. And then went to a concert with my brother. This is the day before deadline day, and got a phone call saying, "Look, it's agreed, you're going. We're flying to Milan tomorrow." So I was just like, what? I mean, I drove, so I couldn't have a few drinks or anything, and I didn't really want to. But I wanted to celebrate. But I just went and enjoyed the concert, and then went home. Got on the phone to Maldini, who was obviously like sporting director at the time. And I was just chatting to him, and he was saying, "Look, I'm like really excited by you as a player. I can't wait to work with you." And that was surreal in itself. Then
What were you like? Were you just like chatting back? Or were you like, oh my God, this is Maldini. Make my mouth move. Make words come out. Was it like a surreal conversation?
it was just weird how chilled he was. It was just a normal conversation. I was like, "This is one of the best players in the world, best defender of all time, probably." And he's telling me that I'm flying to AC Milan tomorrow on a private jet. Like this stuff like this doesn't happen, and all that happens before the heartbreak of it falling through.
Yeah, it falls through. Dear listeners, this ends well. But your medical in Milan reveals a heart arrhythmia. Milan weren't able to complete the transfer. You know, when I hear that story, you feel the fear, you feel the disappointment, the agony kicking in pretty quickly when they say the words heart arrhythmia. But what's interesting to me, you've said before, Antonee, your immediate reaction upon hearing the news, this is amazing. Your immediate reaction was, of course it's not happened. And I've seen you describe yourself. I find this hard to believe also because you seem the opposite of me, but you're a natural pessimist, you've said. You once said that even when going on a holiday you plan, you don't believe you're there until you're actually there. Talk me through that mindset because, being an elite athlete, a professional athlete, it requires self-belief. How do you square that with your wonderful, from my perspective, natural pessimism?
I don't know really. I mean, obviously, in terms of like football, I obviously know the ability I have and what I'm good at, what my weaknesses are, and how to get the best out of myself on the pitch. So in terms of that, that's all in my control. That's fine. But when stuff's out of my control, then I'm kind of like, I can't guarantee that it's going to go right because I'm not the one doing it. I'm not saying I get everything right and get everything perfect, but it's you know how it is. So like you said, I was like literally going through the whole medical, like they're going to find something in my knee in the scans or my back or something's going to go wrong. And then I turn up to the headquarters and it's not any of that. It's a heart issue, which is something I've never heard of. So just the experience of that, I didn't even have time to think. I was scared that I might have a heart problem. I was just like, yeah, my moves finally fell through. I was just starting to think it might happen. Then I fly home and then it like
that
kicked in.
Flight, that flight.
Yeah,
Oh God.
this was when COVID was just starting to pick up as well. So it was kind of like I get home to everything being locked down, football stopping, and I just kind of had to sit with this for months. I didn't end up going in for the operation that I was supposed to have until June, from the end of January. So I had like 5 months of just not knowing what my future was going to be. I was training with like an ECG stuck to me just to make sure I was okay and track results and stuff. And it was a weird experience, to be honest.
I can't imagine. I thought a lot about that, Antonee. Your pessimism, I've got to say, you can take the boy out of Everton, but there's still a degree of Everton that clings with the boy, clearly. Good news, viewers. The arrhythmia turned out to be caused by caffeine. Turns out that Antonee Robinson has a reaction to coffee that's even worse than what happens to Weston McKennie. And it was resolved on its own a few months later, thank God. That was January 2020, the pandemic swirling. Ended up being a surreal season for everyone. Wigan went bankrupt. They were relegated. You were faced with a choice between signing for Fulham or Sheffield United and not knowing which way to lean. You turned to your United States teammate, Fulham captain Tim Ream. What did Tim say to you that convinced you that Fulham was the right fit?
Well, one, he told me that the staff had already mentioned that they liked me as a player in general, which to be fair they did. I think the same window Milan wanted to buy me. Fulham were interested in trying to make a move, but then they thought, well, Milan are going in for him, so there's no point. But also, just like he told me, like the coaching staff were really good. That he thought they'd develop me. I asked him because obviously Joe O'Brien was there and he was just the playoff hero. Did he see a path for me into the team? And he said, like, I think knowing you and knowing what they like as players, that there's definitely a path into the team for you if you come and do what you can do, which luckily I did. So after that, also asked him a little bit about like the areas people live in and stuff. He said, well, it's a lovely part of the world. And I kind of made my mind up, really.
There's not a direct line in any part of your career, because you've talked honestly about your anxiety that kicked in when Marco Silva took over as manager in 2021. An incredible coach, but you knew that he was the very same manager who, while at Everton, hadn't given you the time of day. He'd sent you out on loan, then sold you. There was no pathway for you to the first team there. How long did it take you to let go of that history? And was it something that you addressed explicitly with Marco when he took over at Fulham?
To be fair, he kind of addressed it straight away. So they came in, obviously having watched all the players and knowing what their sort of plans were going to be for the summer. But he pulled every player into his office, so not just me in general, but everyone, to just kind of go through little things. So we were just chatting, and he was like, "Look, I've obviously known you for a number of years through Everton. I know what you like. I know what your strengths are. I see how you've developed over the last couple of years. So, let's just keep trying to improve as a player. And if we can improve these different things, then you're a Premier League player." So, as soon as I had that chat with him, I just thought, right, it's a clean slate. He's going to give me a fair chance. There's no point, dwelling on the past of Everton, because I could, even when they sold me, even though I didn't really agree it was the right thing to do with Bainesy only having a year left, I did understand it. I did understand that Baines and Digne were ahead of me as players. So I didn't have an issue with it. And then obviously going forward, I've been playing, this will be my third season with him, and I feel like I've developed as a player, so it all worked out.
You have and then some, because we sit here in the aftermath of a revelatory season for yourself and the whole squad at Fulham. Marco Silva led a yo-yo club to a yo-yo no longer season. An oft oscillating team, just stabilised by, it has to be said, a fearless Tim Ream, Missouri Maldini. Premier League durable, beating the likes of Chelsea, Brighton and Everton, playing front foot football that proved pessimists like yourself totally wrong. What did it feel like in key moments to fly down that wing, surging with confidence, knowing what you dreamed about back in Camp Hill, Walton, with the Galacticos was coming true?
It was just such a fun season in general, because like you said, I've been in the trenches for a lot of years. I've had three proper relegation battles under my belt. So to actually be in a proper Premier League season, not affected by COVID, all the fans are back. I get to go to all these stadiums and actually experience it, play as many games as I did, and feel like a proper Premier League player. And win games. It felt unreal. Like we were playing good football. I feel like we just felt like we had a good team. I had Willian in front of me, who people didn't expect to be so good. I had Tim Ream to my right, who people had written off, and those two partnerships were just suited me so well. Me and Tim connect really well. Willie, he's just a really good player. I can just give him the ball and let him do what he wants, and support him. So it was just so fun, and to go on little runs after Christmas, after the World Cup, go 3-4 wins in a row, things like that. It just felt so good. The changing room, we were all so happy and together, and it's a season that I'll never forget. It's easily the most fun season I've had in football, so it's something that's going to be tough to emulate going forward, but it's something that I'll be achieving or aspiring to achieve.
And so can we talk about Tim Ream? Because he is a remarkable human being. He's like the Scooby-Doo to your Scrappy-Doo. And I've said this to Tim, I find him so bloody inspirational. A gent who, frankly, has struggled twice in the Premier League. But then age 35, just unfurling a monster of a season, repelling all comers, scoring goals, or goals singular. Can you talk about him? I mean, you play alongside him, two Americans kicking butt against the world for one club, like a footballing Cole and Dylan Sprouse. But what's he like as a bloke from your perspective?
I mean, as a bloke, he's just a dad. He's just a dad. He kind of took on the captaincy role because he was in the team more than TC was. So in day to day, he was obviously dealing with the manager a lot more and sort of the other captaincy stuff that goes with that. But in general, just a really nice lad, family man. My fiance and his wife are good friends as well. But just get on with him really well, and to see him do well after so many years, I've always from afar being in the Championship when the 2 seasons that he was there, I've looked at him and he was the best centre back in the Championship easily. So for him to then translate that and become one of the best centre backs in the Premier League, for that season, it was so well deserved. Couldn't happen to a more humble guy who just obviously does all the right things, puts a lot of time in, and he has to juggle that with 4 dogs and 3 kids as well. And he still comes in. We'll be on recovery days, and he's leading the line, doing the jogging, and we're all blowing at the back. But it's just comfortable for him. Like, he's clearly looked after himself at this age. Inspires me. I was thinking, looking at this next World Cup, I just want to play this and then I'm done. Now I see him aspiring for this next World Cup. It makes me think I've got another 2 or 3 in me as well.
He's thinking 2034. He really is. 4 dogs, 3 kids, 1 incredible podcast. When you're playing with him and you look at each other, do you feel a special bond, just like American internationals just yakking it up in the Premier League?
Definitely feel a bond. I feel like we don't really have to say much to each other to know what we need to do. He pulls me into the right position when I need. I know where he wants me to go when he's on the ball, depending on what the opposition's done. So it's nice to. I've been at a club for a few years and build a partnership with someone that is really strong going forward, and to have that at international level as well. To just be like a copy and paste recipe, it really helps me. Keeps things simple for me. So I do feel very comfortable when he's on the pitch with me.
Your international career has also been, a grind out of the roster for a spell, which we often forget. You quote clawed your way back into it, in the words of coach Greg Berhalter, ahead of World Cup qualifying. Does that metaphor ring true to you? Did it feel to you that you had to claw your way back into this mix?
I'd say so, yeah. I mean, I remember Greg's first camp when we were in Annapolis, and I got dropped for the Gold Cup roster, and then until it was probably another year or so until I was actually back with the team. But even then, I was still, trying to fight for a place. Obviously, Serginho was emerging and doing really well, and he could play left back, so it was kind of like he was going to start. And if they wanted to play him right back, I might get a game. I didn't play in the Nations League final that we first won. And I remember after that as well, going into that camp, I was coming off an ankle injury at the end of that season, so I wasn't fully right, but didn't play that final. Didn't play too good in the semi-final before it, and then we had a friendly afterwards against Costa Rica where we won 4-0. And I remember going into the bathroom after that game crying because I just felt like I played awful, and it was like because of my ankle. But in general, it was like, I had these 2 chances this window to kind of try and cement a place in the team, and I just ruined them. So it just really hurt that window. And I was obviously still in pain, but going off after that to World Cup qualifying, to not start in the first couple of games, to then nearly playing all the minutes for the rest of it, and kind of cementing my place in the team, it just made myself obviously feel valuable to the team, but also again it lifted my confidence. I felt good as a player, and it felt like it was becoming my spot. Like, obviously nothing's given. And no one expects to play every game, but I kind of felt like it was my spot for the taking after that.
The World Cup, and I don't know if you know this, Antonee, you were the 4th fastest player at the tournament. One of my favourite moments of the entire thing, you went briefly viral, not for a goal celebration, but for a lovely moment in the aftermath of the game against Iran. Rather than celebrating victory, you spent the first minutes after the final whistle consoling a sobbing Iranian defender, Ramin Reznian, on the side of the pitch. It was genuinely beautiful, genuinely human moment between 2 blokes on teams that haven't historically had the greatest relations. What did you say to him? What does one even say to an opponent whose World Cup you've just ended?
I'm pretty sure I remember I just congratulated him and said that he's made his family and his country proud, and that that they played really well, and that it was unlucky that they didn't get through because it was the last minutes of the game. They were so close to scoring. We obviously had a couple block chances at the end, and roles reversed. It could have been me crying and one of them, consoling me. But obviously there was a lot of sort of political angst with Iran that had kind of been making the news beforehand and stuff. And I actually seen Ramin doing an interview before that game where he was talking about how much he loved the people of Iran and stuff like that. And it kind of made me think, these guys are they're in a position where there's a lot more consequence for them speaking out than it would be for us. So I just, I couldn't imagine how bad it must have felt, like feeling like all that bad stuff was happening and they didn't go through to the knockouts, of that feeling of like, they felt like they let their country down, but I felt like they'd acquitted themselves really well all tournament, made the country and mainly the friends and family proud as well. So obviously I shared that moment with him, and he kind of he got a bit emotional as well, and I did after the game as well. But yeah, like you said, it was just a human moment. I wasn't really thinking about being on camera or anything. I just, felt bad for them not qualifying, and if I knew it would have been heart-wrenching for me if we hadn't.
There's video of you after winning the Nations League back in June, chugging a trophy full of Bud Light, second trophy on your resume with this team. When you pull on the red, white and blue, lifting trophies, you've honestly never looked more truthfully at home. We're now looking at the 2026 cycle. The Copa America looms ahead next summer. Can you describe where the team are mentally right now, what the goal is in terms of the here and now?
Well, I think we've developed from, obviously we're still quite a young team, but in terms of being this really young, promising, talented team to now, we want to, we just want to kind of dominate our region and kind of move on from that and globally become a real force to deal with. So I feel like our expectations are bare minimum to try and be the best in CONCACAF. So obviously winning the Nations League, especially against Mexico and Canada, that kind of showed that we were really comfy, and it was really easy for us to show that we're a dominant team, and we played really well both games. Got to win a trophy at the end of it. So going forward, any local sort of competition, whether it's Nations League or Gold Cup, we want to go in and win all of them. And then when we get the chance to play even bigger stages, Copa America would be amazing. And to play in the World Cups, obviously the big goal that we want to go and win on our home soil. But going forward, we just want to try and be a dominant team in CONCACAF and really start producing, good performances against world-class opposition. So when we play elite opponents, we want to show not just that we're hanging in there, but that we're going for the win and that we're a team to be feared and respected.
Last question for you, Antonee. You've had a lot of seismic change in your life. You've become a dad. But even before that change, you've always been a man of so many interests outside of football. You're a Rubik's Cube virtuoso, a self-taught pianist. You love a good card trick. And in life, we all have a thing we do for a job. So many people let that define them. But you seem to be someone that's always learning, constant curiosity. How important is that, not just for footballers, but for all of us, the ability to stretch yourself, to never be content with just a base of knowledge?
I think it's just sort of the journey of life, really. I mean, not thinking too deeply about it. My mind kind of just goes to when something catches my eye that seems achievable, I want to go after it and do it and sort of expand my horizons. And in terms of football, it's such a job that just takes so much of your time and effort and energy that when you have them moments where you don't have to think about football, it's so nice to have that downtime and be able to do something else. And now that all my energy just goes into being a dad outside of football, to be honest. Like I said about Tim juggling 7 kids basically with his dogs. It's hard to imagine that because my daughter takes so much energy just to entertain and keep going. So, a big shout out to my fiance for helping me with that. But I do really like being able to switch off from football and be able to just live a regular life outside of it, so that when I do go back on the pitch, I'm not burned out and depleted. Like, I can be engaged and ready to go when I need to.
Godspeed, Antonee, to you, your family, your team, your magic. Thank you, mate.
Cheers, mate. All the best.